Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is a special episode here on Cabin Devils. Why? Because this Saturday, 10th of June, 2023, Word of Life Uganda will be celebrating 20 years of life change here at the property in Kitende, and you are invited. In this episode, I interview Chris Mwara. Chris is a name you don't hear about much. When we talk about the history of Word of Life Uganda, most of you know Thomas and Faith Obunde, a very, very special couple in my life. After my dad passed, Thomas is the only other person that ever called me son. Later on, the late Dave Nightingale will become another special person in my life. They both taught me one thing: ministry is people. Today, we are picking up the story of Word of Life Uganda, this time from the perspective of Chris Mwara, former director of Word of Life Kenya. These men, together with Peter Odanga and Thomas and many other people, had a desire to reach Uganda. And here is the story.
Suffice it to say that I ended up getting involved with Word of Life first as a counselor, and then later on I went on staff. And it was while I was working with Word of Life that we began to have these camps in Diani Beach at the coast. We had a lot of Ugandan professionals at the time. This was the early 1980s when a lot of people had fled during the trouble with Idi Amin and then the many upheavals. So we had lots of professionals. Outside of, I think, the doctors and a few professors, the only jobs available for most of them were high school teaching. And so many of them were distributed all over Kenya, teaching in high school. There was a girl in particular who taught in a school near my rural home, and she used to come with her girls to the camp. I remember one time she asked me, "When are we going to have a camp for us?" And I said, "What us?" And she said, "Well, I'm a teacher. I come to camp with my students. I can't really be myself. I still have to be a teacher at the camp, even though I'm a camper." I said, "Oh, we're going to make sure that that happens. And when it happens, we will also make sure that we have Ugandan campus." So we started to plan for a college and career camp, as we called it. And in August 1987, I think it was, we planned for the first college and career camp. By the grace of God, I should say, because we had been thinking about inviting people from Uganda, but I had no idea how to do it. I didn't have that many contacts in Uganda, and Word of Life was not existent there. But then I was at the ferry, and I saw I think it was a Land Cruiser, big 4x4 vehicle, and on the door was emblazoned Baptist Mission, Uganda. I thought, that guy has to know something about what we can do. I walked over to him, introduced myself. We're both in the ferry, crossing. And it turned out it was a guy called Larry Pompelli. And I gave him some of our brochures that we had printed for that camp. And cut the long story short, in that first camp in August 1987, there were, I think, 18 Ugandans among the campers. The number continued to grow. The following year and the years that followed, they ended up, I don't know if I should say, they ended up hiring, chartering whole buses, sometimes 2 buses from Kampala. They would come overnight, spend the day at Kabete, spend the night, and then the next day they would travel with us to the coast. And after the camp, then they would come back, spend the night again at Kabete, and head out to Uganda. So the very first campers we had in large numbers from Uganda were actually the professionals and university students. That's what we called the college and career. With time, the question began to come, when will we have camps in Uganda? This went on, and they say it's the dripping tap that gets the attention. So eventually we thought, why not? And so we worked with a team. I don't remember everyone who was on that team. I remember people like Amos Kasule and Sarah Mirembe. There was quite a team. They prepared for a camp which was held at Gayaza High School. I still remember that. And so in the mid-90s, we took a bus, a team of us from Kenya. Among us was the late Danson Wambua, whom everybody called Uncle Danson at that time. Peter Odanga was in that team, and then quite a few others. And that was the first of many camps that were held in Uganda at different venues. The other camp I attended was actually somewhere in Entebbe. So we didn't necessarily have the same venue. It depended on what was convenient for the organizers. That's a short summary of the way we ended up with the first camps in Uganda. And I would say that it was at the initiative of Ugandan young professionals wanting Word of Life in their own country. I don't know if there is anything else you would want to get from that, except to say that there was a bit of a break in the couple of years before 2002, I think it was. At 2002, Thomas Obunde was then slotted to become the new missionary to Word of Life in Uganda. He actually came to Uganda the first time in the summer of 2001, if I remember well, and then moved, I think, the following year to Uganda, and the rest at that point I think is history. Incidentally, our own field director in Kenya, Peter Odanga, was actually meant to go to Uganda, but in, I believe it was 2002, Danson Wamboa died rather suddenly. And so we had a bit of a lacuna on leadership in Diani Beach, and Peter was actually asked to redirect his attention to Kenya, which is how we ended up with him serving in Diani Beach. At the time, I served in Kabete and would often go to Mombasa for the camps. That's a brief summary of what I remember of those camps in the early days. They were very exciting. A lot of the young professionals and students from the university. It's I think, something that should be kept in history. People, and I don't know where all those people were. There was a lawyer called Nora. There was an award who worked at the Attorney General's office. But that's a long time ago. I don't know where those people are anymore. Well, it's simply unbelievable what God has done in Uganda in those 20 years since Word of Life started then, comparing it to the haphazard makeshift camps that we had. They were exciting, but I look at, for instance, the Christian Academy at the International School and the way that it is impacting and influencing hundreds of children. I look at the Africa Bible Institute, and that has an influence in all of Africa, there have been students from South Africa, I think Mozambique, Kenya, Uganda, for sure, Congo, Rwanda, and Ethiopia. I taught an Ethiopian student once. So I think Uganda has turned from a country that was almost begging Word of Life to come to a country that others are begging if they can send people to them. It's been a very... I love the fact that we have a wonderful property, we have buildings and all that I think are very beautiful. But I think more than that, the core of the ministry is the team that you have there, the institution, particularly for me, of the Bible Institute, because I'm a teacher. And so I just love the fact that we have an institute in Africa where people can come and study the word and don't have to fly off to some faraway land. But the impact also it has on people. I've met people who are pastors. One of them told me, before I came here, I taught things that were wrong. I have learned the truth. My fear is how to convince all the people I misled before. And I thought it's a telling thing that in 1 year, a person can turn around that much. So there's a lot to thank the Lord for. The team in Uganda, the Bible ministry. I've been out in the sports ministry. That is interesting, where the Bible school students especially play football or volleyball or something else against another institution. And then we have a 5 or 10 minute missions emphasis where one of us shares the gospel. I've had an opportunity to do that. I think there's only one way to go with the ministry in Uganda, and that's up, expand, grow, become, I think, a missionary sending center for Africa.